So, welcome, Octavian. Great to have you on board, all the way from Germany.
Yes, Greg. Thank you very much for inviting me. Hello, and nice to see you again after we met in the US. It was a very nice experience, and I love your humor, and I really missed it. You're amazing, by the way. So, yeah, thanks for the introduction. I think the AI is a very interesting topic for you also, because you do also a lot of stuff in your geek, so to say. You're in the background of IT and you understand all this kind of stuff, right? So I think it's gonna be
Yeah,
something very deep for you, right? So I don't
I
know if
do
you're
come from a
watching
tech
any.
background myself, so yes, I do like to dabble a little bit here and there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's what I was saying. So I would go actually on this launch about the chip fighting about America and China when it comes to AI. What's your opinion upon DeepSeek and the model that America used? Do you think the price of the American model is overpriced, overrated, and overbranded compared to the Chinese that's non-branded? What do you think about it?
Course, of course it is. Whenever you do something and you develop something initially, it always costs you more. For example, up until about 18 months ago, to put something in space, it was $10,000 a kilo to
Hmm,
take 1 kilo and to put it into orbit.
right.
Now, with what is happening in the space race right now, it's come down to $70 a kilo. So let me go back.
Wow.
10,070. Of course, it's going to be different. Now, what this is just going to mean is that some other, oh, don't want to insult half the audience, but some other geek kid out there is going to come up with a better way of doing this. And they're going to leverage
Right.
off what the Chinese have done. But I think the biggest concern that I have is on that subject would be we have had in Australia, we've got a tobacco war going on with illegal tobacco, and people are ramming their cars into tobacco stores and setting the cars on fire. They're using the
Wow.
cars as a weapon. Okay, I'm getting there. So, using the cars as a weapon. In Australia, we no longer have a car market at all. We don't make any cars in Australia anymore. We import them
Hmm.
all.
Yep.
And within the next couple of years, 80% of those cars are going to come from China because 50% of Teslas come from China as well. So
Yes.
80% of all cars are going to come from China. Now, a majority of those are going to be electric as well,
Mm.
with computers, internet connections.
Yep.
Those cars can very well be have been proven to be used as a weapon. So we're
Right.
going to have all of our cars coming from China pretty much. All of those cars on the road could very well be converted to a weapon. So DeepSeek, as an
True.
example, the information that you put in there can be weaponized. Are we just being paranoid? Don't know. I don't know that
Exactly.
anybody knows. Certainly, I don't know, but the possibility, the options are there.
Yep.
If we go and use ChatGPT, is it any different? American weaponize it, American commercial enterprise weaponize it, or Chinese state weaponize it. I think there's a lot more to this conversation than just the
Yeah.
technology. It is going to become very political.
It is, because actually I think the world will end up just having these two clashes, the clash of the AI titans, how I like to call it. One is the
Mm.
US and the other one was Asia. But you know what's funny? So many British guys, they were so advanced with AI in Europe. But Google bought these companies because they bought everything what was related to artificial intelligence, robots, mechanics, everything. Do you know Boston Dynamics also, the robots, the small doggies?
Yes.
It's insane. I mean, that was a military project, and they ended up being bought by Google. And now, if you go to some expos, you can see the dogs, they get branded in company colors and they just do like demos for the people to see what I can do. It's fascinating, right? And I'm going to share with you a very interesting story which I found out last year. So, you know the Volkswagen scandal, like the VW, the company
Yes.
which is German, right? Because about the fake emission that was happening back there, so like the data was not correct. After that event, what happened? Of course, somebody had to be responsible. Like every time it happens, right? Everybody has to say, "Oh, point the finger. That's the guy."
Yes.
So after this event, Volkswagen created a new division that was just doing software, right? And they are called Cariad. Have you heard about them? Cariad?
No, no, I haven't.
So they're doing now software for all the Volkswagen group. So last year I was at a conference, the biggest conference for geeks and developers in Germany and in Europe, by the way. And the chief, the big boss of this company was there. And for the first time, I heard in German manufacturing history that he announced one interesting thing. They take China as an ally in building the car of the future because they realize the Chinese are more advanced in the technological part, in the programming part, right? The chips, the software in the car, and everything. And they need to create an operating system in the car. And unfortunately, they failed 3 times in a row creating an operating system. So, when you cannot do your own Mac OS, right, or Windows system, you just take some Linux-based stuff and try to make it. But even with that one, you can fail, right? And that's very,
Mm.
very interesting because like Germany was very close to this kind of things, but they realized that China has something what they need. On the other hand, you're saying about electrical vehicles, right? 60 to 80% of the material that you need for the electrical car are being found in China. So I think this is going to be a huge risk for all the economies worldwide because you're not going to be dependent of one little thing. It's going to be the
No.
American cars, the Tesla, right? Let's take it as an example. They are trying now to find mines all over the world so they don't get dependent on China, right? But do they make it? For how much money they can get it and how many resources you get? What do you think about it?
Well, fascinating. Australia is a very large producer of lithium, which goes into the
Mhm.
mobile phones, batteries, and things like that.
Yes.
We are shutting down our lithium mines here in Australia.
Really?
Now, okay, so in Australia, we're shutting them down. Why are we happy to get our lithium from West Africa, where we know there's child exploitation going on, because it's cheap?
Mm.
And we all stick our hands over our ears and our eyes to say, no, we don't want to know anything about the child exploitation going on in West Africa so that we can have the convenience of our mobile phones and our little laptops.
Mm.
So there are countries like, oh, Canada, but sorry, they just got 25% tax put on them from America, didn't they? That have
Yeah.
also have lithium mines, run by Australian companies, by the way. So Australia
Oh,
and Canada are both out of the game now. There's very few choices for a lot of these. And rare earth metals,
mm.
China has, or up until about 2.5 years ago, had very little rare earth metals.
Mm.
However, they've gone and they've done their research now. They've been exploring everywhere around China. Now they're self-sustaining with their rare
Yeah.
earth metals. They don't need America anymore for rare earth metals for their, because this all came about as part of the stealth bombers. They needed the rare earth metals for the US stealth bombers. And
Yeah.
yeah, it got very complicated there. But now China's self-sufficient with their rare earth metals. They don't need the US. So the US can't leverage them for that any longer.
Yeah. What do you think about the chips? I'm really curious your opinion on
Well,
this one.
the chips, it's quite relevant here in Australia as well because
Mm,
we are so close to Taiwan.
that
It's
was my next
just above
question.
us.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly.
Taiwan has is the major manufacturer for high quality chips in the world. And
Exactly.
China says that Taiwan is part of China. China wants Taiwan. Taiwan don't want China. And then what Taiwan have done to prevent China just walking in the door and taking over, they've built these high quality chip manufacturers because Taiwan has a mountainous range, cliff tops on three of their sides. So the side that they don't, they've built their manufacturing plants right on the edge of Taiwan there at the only
Mm,
entrance to Taiwan. So China's concerned that if they do invade, that Taiwan's just going to go bang and blow up their factories, and
mm,
they're not going to get any benefit from taking back Taiwan.
I know.
So
I
it's an interesting situation there.
And also US is backing up because if you look all the mobile phones, like you said, have chips from that area. So that's a huge
Hmm.
issue and a problem. And you know what's funny? I mean, when I was a student in Erasmus, it's this exchange program, I met a girl, she was from Taiwan. They still have a Chinese passport, and it was very interesting for me because I didn't know this one actually, that they have a Chinese passport still, you know? And they evolved in so differently like Hong Kong did, but now Hong Kong kind of get back to their owner, right? To the official um,
Yes.
part of the island
1999, I
status.
was there.
Right, see? So it's interesting how the history has evolved, right? And what's going to happen at the end of a cycle? Because this is what I call like a cycle, right? An evolution. Like with the empires, look at the British Empire, right? It was huge, it was massive, and if you consider like 20 something million people, they ruled the world, and Australia was built just because they just wanted to find a piece of land at the end of the world, right? And he said, "Oh, I think it's far away from London. In the name of the Queen, we call it the new land, right?" So
Hmm.
it's easy, interesting how things are evolving. But I think the chip price, and if China would create bigger and cheaper chips than America does in Europe together, I think it's going to be a huge problem because they will be so competitive with everything. And I don't know. It's just my opinion that's gonna impact a lot of
Okay.
industries.
Let me blow this conversation out of the water.
Tell me.
Quantum computing and teleportation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I like it.
Wow. What is happening there? A couple of years ago, the Japanese were able to teleport a proton from one side of a lab to another side of a lab.
Hmm.
Oh, and then you've got to throw in quantum entanglement. Now, this just stretches my brain. It really does. I was
Okay.
there at pretty much the birth of the internet. I was I set up the very first commercial.com here in Australia.
Oh
So I
wow.
set that one up.
Okay.
And you talk about these IP addresses. Well, I set up a lab at a university here in Australia, and we had 8 class IP ranges because
Yeah.
every computer got its own IP address. No such thing
Yeah.
as DNS or anything like that. So quantum computing, they 3 weeks ago, they were able to conduct a test over a standard standard fiber optic cable, domestic quality. They did a denial of service down that line,
Okay.
and they then did a tested out this quantum entanglement teleportation of protons from one end of the 30-kilometer fiber to the other with a denial of service being sent down the fiber, and it
Mm-hmm.
worked.
Wow. When was it?
That was about
Do you
three
remember?
weeks ago.
Okay. I'll Google it out. I didn't know about it. It's
That just
fantastic.
changes everything. So instant communications down domestic fiber optic, that just
Wow.
changes everything. You've got to have your own little device at both ends, of course, a converter, but yes, just
But it's a
that
huge, yeah.
changes everything from a network perspective.
Wow.
Then you throw in quantum computing on top of that.
Mm,
And these chips you're talking about are just toys compared to that, but they haven't got those right yet. Though there is a quantum computer expected to come out at the end
mm,
of 2026, which I don't
yeah.
think any commercial enterprise will ever see.
That's what I wanted to say. I think it's gonna be so difficult for them to just buy it. And it's not gonna be like a regular PC, right? Because it's totally different state. I mean, I think we are not ready for what's gonna come, if you ask me. AI combined with quantum computing and everything here is gonna be a total game changer for humanity. And I think we have evolved so much, right? To the level like what you're saying. I mean, it used to be a dream and they used to just think about it, how you can do it, and then what happens with the soul. Remember all those movies when they were teaching you about this stuff? Now we're becoming like some sort of reality. I mean, if you're gonna be the same, Craig, when you're gonna be at the end of the fiber optics, we don't know yet what happens to the soul, right? How is gonna get that one sent and your personality and stuff like that. I think we're still far ahead, but again, the evolution of technology because of technology, I think is massive. So yeah, I totally agree on that one.
Well, this conversation has been all over the place, so let me just throw in something else, shall I?
Bro, please be my guest. I love
I
it.
don't know how I'm going to brand this interview, but anyway. Okay. I asked my son recently, my 27-year-old son recently, I said, okay, you lose a leg. If you were offered a perfectly functional mechanical leg, would you take the leg? He said, yes. I said, okay. I said, you lose an arm. I said, if you were offered a perfectly mechanical arm, would you take the arm? He said, yes. I said, oh, good. Okay, fine. I said, okay. So I said, got a bit of a heart problem here. I said, would you replace your heart with a mechanical heart that'd live on for another 20 odd years and go fine? He said, yep. I said, okay. I said, you lose your body. I said, you just got your head left. I said, would you replace that with a mechanical body? He said, no. I said, I don't get it. I said, you've done the leg, you've done the arm, you've done the heart. I said, what's wrong with the rest of the body? I said, okay. I said, so I said, with these quantum computers and things like that that are going on right now, I said, extract your mind and stick it into a computer and put it into a different body. I said,
Yes.
would you do that? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, because he said, I know the leg's possible. He said, I know the arm's possible. I'm pretty sure that the mechanical heart is just around the corner. He said, I have grown to understand and to socially accept those changes, those modifications to the body. He said,
Mm,
I can't socially accept or understand a replacement body yet, or a replacement head or a mind yet. He said, I can't socially understand that yet.
right. I think this is the
I have
biggest
great
problem.
conversations with my son.
Yeah, but it's fantastic actually. I was like fascinated what you were saying. But it's like he's like you said, people tend to get used to some things, right? And we find it like normal. Like, did you ask your son if he would ever drive and trust a Tesla 100% to drive for himself in any weather condition and stuff like that? Because most of the young generation kids, they say, yes, we still trust the machine better than I trust myself. And me, because I'm an old dinosaur, I mean, I'm not so ahead from your son, but still, I had a couple of generations behind me, I would still not trust the machine 100%. I would still want to have control of it, right? But it's
Hmm.
funny how it's going to evolve this stuff, right? And I'm really curious what the future will say about it. How do they feel
My
about, for example,
son,
what do they want to do in the future?
yeah, my son doesn't trust it,
Okay.
and I'm probably more inclined to trust it than he is because
Wow.
I'm 58 years of age. At some stage in the next, what, 12 to 20 years, I'm not going to be safe on the road. So therefore,
Yes.
I live in the hope that the car will be able to take care of me. I'll be able to get in the car
Right.
and it will do the driving for me. So
Right.
mine is more a hope than anything else, I think.
Yeah, but that's different. I agree on that one.
That
I
is
also
different. That's
feel like that.
desperation, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, because you want somebody to take care of you, right? But it's
Yes.
normal. But what I got shocked when I was reading like the Gen Z, right? The kids that are coming as a future generation, they trust this kind of machine more. Or I was reading an article about this universal basic income, which is also part of everything was gonna be like AI will gonna work, right? So basically most of the jobs can be replaced now, even at this moment with AI. But in the future, I think it's gonna be even worse. So for people who just get used with their phone in their hand, not do much, it's gonna be maybe a very common thing. But for you that you were always used to work and get money and have a job 9 to 5, or be a manager from earlier times when you didn't have AI and all this stuff, it's gonna be such a different transition, you know? I mean, let the robots do everything and you just watch.
You're probably talking to the wrong person. I've been working remotely since 1994, and
Wow.
in 1994, I also developed a system to go out and look at the logs on every computer in a network around the world and put in exclusions for errors in this, exclude that, put in inclusions for this so that I want to know about this. I created my own AI system back in 1994
Wow.
to keep me on top of the network. So I'm probably not the person you're talking to there.
Yeah, but
I
still,
was a
you
little bit
didn't.
ahead of the time, little bit ahead of the curve there.
I agree on that one, but still, the technology was so obsolete for you. You were too advanced for the technology, right? That's the
And
thingy.
that's
Cool.
that's always been the case.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. I'm always fascinated when I meet people like you that understand programming at that level, you know? What do you think about programming, by the way, in the future? How is it gonna look in the next 5 years with AI and everything?
When I started programming, it was on cards. It
Yeah,
was ones and zeros. I was doing binary and then something called assembly programming.
I know
Uh,
it. I had it too.
then I then I went to C, COBOL, Fortran 77. I was in Australia. I was the first person to use PowerShell for deployment of Microsoft Exchange 2007. So I was the first person to
Wow.
use that in Australia and deploy Exchange 2007. I've always been a Microsoft alpha tester and beta tester. So, yes.
Okay, nice.
So, programming is going to become less and less efficient,
Mm,
but easier and easier to do. Wow, what a contradictory statement that is. Uh,
right?
it
That's what
is.
I'm thinking.
The reason why I say that is less and less efficient because we're going to be programming at such higher levels. It eventually has to be translated back into lower levels so that the
Yes.
computer can actually understand it. That
Mm,
translation takes time and makes things less efficient. But because we're humans and we want to program just easily, it will become easier but less efficient. As I said, contradictory, but there is rationale behind that. And
right.
for example, I was just in Dallas, virtually, of course, uh, doing a mergers and acquisitions training program with an extraordinary person called Adam Coffey over the last
Hmm.
2 days. What I've done from there is I've created a Word document with all the steps for doing a merger and acquisition. And on the right-hand side, I've gone and put in the queries for ChatGPT to go through and compile all this information, bring back all this information for any industry and any
Yes.
location. Talk about a
Fantastic,
game
right?
changer. And I was
Yeah.
able to do that in a couple of hours. Just
Yeah.
extraordinary. And now I've got all the legislation, all the regulations, all the steps that I need to do. And I can do that for any industry and any location. And I can identify the the sellers in the market as well through these queries. And what did I do with that? I went and gave it away for free, didn't I? Just to help people.
It sounds fantastic. But it's nice, right? Because you get so much value of this AI and so much data. And but what I'm afraid is I think it's gonna be smarter and smarter. So basically AI is gonna fight with another AI or program and learn new things on its own. And I think the biggest challenge will be when they will start become more and more independent of what they get trained. And this hallucination, it was the most searched word last year in the history of words. I mean, Britannica or this kind of stuff, they tell you like which word has been the most searched on Google and internet. It was
Yeah.
hallucination because of AI, because they go crazy.
Okay. You want a headline for this conversation? I'm going to give it to you right now, okay?
Tell me.
AI doesn't exist.
What do you mean it doesn't exist?
It's
We just call it
just
like
a
that.
it's just a gimmick. It's a commercial name given just so that people can make money off it. AI does not exist. All we've got right now is ways of processing big data.
Oh, I love
That's
this
all we've
part.
got. There
I
is
love
no
it.
such thing as AI. So your concerns about them fighting amongst one another is just total garbage. That is not a, AI may very well do that, by the way, but we're not there. We're nowhere near close
Well,
to it.
not
We're
yet.
still thinking in our own stupid minds that we've got access to all this data for the first time because all these people have been going Google search, Yahoo search, all these searches. They've been
Hmm.
compiling that information now for the last 15, 20 years.
I
They've got an
agree.
enormous amount. So, okay, they searched this, then they searched this, then they searched this. Oh no, this person searched over here and over here. They've got all that information now. That's what is simulating our AI right now. AI does
Yeah,
not exist. It's a gimmick.
right. But they'll have more data, right? And I think data
Oh,
is going to
yes.
be so massive in the future.
But they don't have the decision-making process. All they can
Right.
do is follow the steps.
Instructions. Exactly. But
When
there
they
was
get
a,
that decision-making, that's what's going to be AI.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think that's where they want to head with all those kind of things, right? Because they have like they see some results. But I consider like kids learning, right? You learn a new language, you learn everything what you do, but you need to take the steps. And at some point you will resonate or understand and make your own decisions. So I think this AI will still have a potential, but not now. In the next 5 years, I would say. At least to the level like to have more decision making. What do you think?
1985, I was studying an artificial intelligence program called LISP, Lexical
Never know that.
Analysis Program. And it was going to be the thing. It was really hard. It was really brackets everywhere. Yeah, it was really hard to understand. But it was going to be the thing. That was 1985. We were programming this back then. We're still programming AI right now.
Mm,
The Dubai right now is looking for 1 million, yes, that's a lot of zeros,
I
1
know.
million AI programmers. The
Yes.
key word there is programmers. They're programmers. If AI existed, we wouldn't need the programmers. There's no decision capabilities there. We're still giving it steps to go through, processes to go through to simulate decisions. And if you want to
Yeah.
just total tangent, I want to get this in before we disappear off this conversation. But
Right.
back in 1991, an organization called Digital Equipment Corporation produced computers called alpha computers. I had a couple
Mm-hmm.
of them, nice little things. They were 128-bit machines.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your computer that you're working on now? Is that probably a 64-bit computer?
Yes.
Mine's a 64-bit computer. This was a 128-bit computer, and it was commercially available. And when HP took over Digital Equipment Corporation, oh, sorry, Compaq took over, and then HP took over Compaq, they got rid of the alphas. This was 128-bit, and we had that back in 1991 as an off-the-shelf machine. Quite economical. You pay $20,000 for it, which I paid
Right.
$26,000 for my first 286 computer, by the way, but it was pretty
Oh
complex
yeah.
because it had two 5 1/4 inch floppy drives. So it was
Right.
pretty expensive for that.
I
Uh,
remember those
so
times. Oh my gosh.
when you talk about jumps, sometimes we can go so far and then things get lost.
Hmm.
That was 1991. What's that? 33 years ago. We had 128-bit machines, and now we're still working on 64. What
Well, they
happened?
say they put a cores inside it to multiply them, right? So they put more layers. But we see what
Hmm.
the future will hold for us. I'm really curious also with AI evolution. I'm following very closely. And I think it's an element they wanted to take it out to the masses because of the data. And I think now this is the
Yeah,
biggest data gathering process in the whole human history, right? So we need to get at the
hmm,
data. That's why we do podcasts. We need the data. We need to
exactly.
exchange.
Well,
So
Octavian, I'm going to have to cut off that intro that we did for this podcast
yes. Okay.
because we didn't cover anything that we wanted to cover. But gee, we certainly threw in a few hand grenades here and there, didn't we?
I
I don't know
like the geeky
how.
part. I would focus on something more because I think we could speak one whole day, man. You are a treasure. You are an asset when it comes to this geeky part. And no, I'm really fascinated about your knowledge, and I rarely find people that are so deep into the topics and they really know what they're talking about, right? And that's why I love the first place when we exchange and we talk for the first time. I said, "Oh my God, I like this guy. He's really brilliant. He knows stuff. Don't be shy."
I don't know anything. I never admit to my technical knowledge, and I'm sure no one on this podcast is ever going to mention that I know anything about tech stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
I'm the
maybe,
business. I do the business stuff.
yeah, look at the geeky in the t-shirt, right? I'll bring the AI suit next time. Okay, Greg, thank you very much for your time. It was really nice the exchange with you. I school, by the way. I just did it.
Well, I hope we've got all that because you just disappeared there for a bit and you're stuck now. So we seem to have spoken all about this technology and it's let us down in the last 2 minutes.
Oh, so thank you for having me here. It was really nice. I consider you are an amazing person, and I find so valuable information. I can always learn from you, and we should exchange more often. I really like the
We should.
topics. And I think you are a little treasure hidden in Australia that nobody will find out because you're so far away at the end of the world. And it's a pity because you have so much to share with everybody, and they should learn from you.
Well, I want to learn from you. Next time we have a conversation, we only have one thing to talk about, okay?
That's
We're just gonna
perfect.
write one topic and that's all we will talk about.
I agree on that one because we can talk too many things, and I'm afraid of that.
It
You
is
pick the topic, and I just do it. Okay, Craig.
brilliant.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
I'm gonna stop this recording now.